Hi, I'm Mark Schaefer. Dating and sex among college students. College is a time to meet new people and to learn more about yourself. Oftentimes, this takes more than just your first year or freshman year, and people continue to learn about themselves up until graduation. The first couple months of college, the students are giddy and eager to enter as many parties as they can and meet new people. Some would argue that the male gender is the protagonist in trying to initiate sex, or in the approaches of females of the opposite sex. However, I suggest that females are just as willing to encounter and just as likely to seek out men for sexual purposes. Whether it's just a Friday night makeout buddy or to have a brief relationship with for a one-night stand, I suggest that females are just as likely as men to participate and seek out such activities. As far as collecting research on the matter, there are a few approaches. Experiments. Experiments can be done on a variety of levels, but as far as this project is concerned and for the safety of our researchers, we would not recommend experiments for collecting research on sex and dating in college, for obvious reasons. Biases, disease, confidentiality of participants, and for the safety of ourselves and participants alike. The next approach for research would be to gather data from surveys. Surveys is a great way to stay relatively unobtrusive and to ensure participant anonymity. Nameless surveys are also a great way to collect real data. By this I mean data that may be held back if the participant's name was actually on the survey. With surveys that explain the gender of the survey taker, nothing more, we can collect more accurate data. Finally, we would use ethnography or field research. Field research allows us to access firsthand the accounts of what happened between male and females during their college sex life and dating experiences. Gaining entry into a group, in this case friends or roommates are a viable option, is something that needs to be done correctly. Even though these people might be your friends, you want to maintain ethics throughout your study. Keeping observations and interviews private and confidential is an important part of ethnographic research. However, before any of this can take place, gaining consent from appropriate consent forms is needed and is a smart thing to do. Consent forms inform the participant of a variety of information, such as informing them what the research study is about, in this case, dating and sex in college. Consent forms will also be important to participants for their safety and that confidentiality will be observed as long as issues involving the law and/or serious personal injuries or threats are not brought up or observed. This is to say that if something serious were to happen that required the assistance of the law, it is the duty of the researcher to take appropriate action. Also, participants are notified that they can leave the study at any time and their wishes will be honored immediately. All information given to me, the researcher, is up to them, and the participant ultimately guides interviews and discussions. For this research on sex and dating in college, using the survey method would be a great way to obtain information. A question on the survey would include things such as, are you interested in having a boyfriend or girlfriend in college? Are you more likely to just make out with someone you just met, or likely to take them home that night too? Does the way you dress on a Friday night play any influence on your mood, or what kind of night you wish to have? If you were to have sex with someone you met at a party or bar, would you consider dating them afterwards, or would the one-night stand be just that? Are you opposed to one-night stands? In other words, hooking up with no emotional attachments? All of the previous are such questions that could be asked to both men and women, and I would hypothesize that the results from both genders would be similar. As far as field research and study on the topic of dating and sex in college, it would be most easy and simple to gain entrance into a group which you already have ties to, such as your friends. However, because these people are your friends, I argue that information could be withheld, for whatever reason, compared to individuals that you don't know and were random participants. In other words, this could alter your collected data. While in the field, I would pay attention to the number of males that first approach women, and how many are turned down or accepted, in bars or at parties. Conversely, I would do the same observations for women to see how many women first approached the men and how many were turned down or were successful. Observing successful approaches for men and women, their body language throughout my observing, and whether or not they leave the bar together is a telling sign. Of course, information like this is left open-ended, and due to the circumstances, to close the informational gap, having access with your friend or people you frequent is a good way to determine how the end of the night might end up for people. Gaining knowledge as to whether there is a difference between men and women and their habits of hooking up, sex, and dating in college are the key questions. Does dating lead to sex, or in fact has the reverse implemented itself in college, and in fact sex now leads to most relationships? Or is sex just something to do on a Friday night, and it's simply just an act with no emotional attachments thereafter? I predict the results of men and women, their observations, interviews, and surveys would be similar. Thanks, and my name's Mark Schaefer, by the way. Thanks.